talk about how awesome failure is. You don't hear this a lot in the world because the world teaches that failure is bad, right? But think about some things here with me for just a few minutes. If you've had a lot of failures, you're right on track. Okay, first of all, there isn't a successful person out there that hasn't had his or her overwhelmingly large pile of failures. You can ask anybody who's achieved any level of success, and they'll tell you about their failures. They've got stories. I listen to podcasts, and some of the stories are so inspiring because people, what people go through to achieve success and the amount of failure that they embrace and carry on and pick themselves back up over and over and over. But the other thing about failure is that it teaches us. You don't learn much from, you learn from wins. That's not true. I'm not going to say that you don't learn from successes. You do. But you don't learn as much as you do with your failures. And there's a reason for that. With failures, you feel like you're losing something, right? You're losing money, you're losing time, you're losing a lot of energy. And so I think it's natural for us to go through and say, well, gosh, I'm losing so much, I might as well win something. And a lot of times the only thing that there is left is the lesson. Because you didn't win money, you didn't earn any extra time, you didn't achieve your goal, whatever it is you were trying to do, you didn't win any of it. So you're like, gosh, the only thing I can get out of this deal is a lesson learned. So if you don't learn a lesson from your failures, then you're just you're doing yourself a disservice, because sometimes that's the only good that's going to come from it. So failure is an interesting thing because, like I was saying, we're taught from an early age that failure is bad, and a lot of this comes from the educational system and some of the, I guess, just the stinking thinking that's around here in our society. For example, I'll just pick on something, a multiple choice test. Well, there are 3 wrong answers and 1 right answer, and your job is to pick the correct answer. But that's not really true for life. If you go out there, you'll find that there's multiple right answers and there's multiple wrong answers that can be turned into right answers with just some skewing. And I understand that it's not quite so cut and dry. If you're asking for a test, like a math test, well, it is what it is. It's math, right? It's either true or false. It's science, and even reading and things. There has to be a black and white, or else there's no way to really grade and understand if a student is learning the material, right? There's a certain fact in history, for example, and that's the only answer. So I get that. I'm not saying that multiple choice tests are wrong, but I am saying that there is so much in society that teaches us there's only one answer that's correct and all the other answers are wrong. And we grow up not really being able to differentiate between our tests at school and real life. And so we start taking this way of thinking into our lives and into our jobs and into our careers, that there's only one right answer and that's the way to succeed, and everything else is wrong. But what happens is we start associating that with failure. And so failure is bad. And so we try and we take a test, and I was never good at testing. I was an okay student, but man, I had to work really hard to get even a decent score in testing in school, just because I would freeze up. On multiple choice tests, I would get into that psychology that, are they trying to play the mind game here? Are they giving me some of these are teasers? Or I hated those ones that had like, A, B, and then C is A and B, or D is A and B, and E is none of the above, and F is all of the above, and G is A and B but not D, and then your brain goes crazy, and mine would just like lock up. I swear, I was never really naturally gifted at being able to figure those. Some people could, process of elimination, boom, they didn't have to study a lot, but they could just figure things out like that. I wasn't very good at testing. But what a lot of systems do, or a lot of thinking, a lot of ways society is that it teaches us failure is bad, right? Even though, sometimes as parents we're guilty of it, instilling in our kids, or coaches, or or bosses, managers, if you are responsible for another person in some capacity, you have a responsibility to help encourage them to step out of the box and do something that's different and take a risk, even though you may fail. That's okay. We have to be okay with allowing ourselves the opportunity to fail. Now, that sounds funny, I know, because failure is a bad word, right? It's a 4-letter word in the English language, and it's bad, and we want to avoid it. No one wants to fail because, heck, last time you failed in your social studies class, the big F at the top of your grade didn't make you feel so good, right? You had to go back and redo, or you had to take it over, or you had to do summer school. Any number of things. You fail at your job, and if your boss isn't smart enough to understand how to deal with a failure on the team, then you may get reinforced this notion that failure is bad, and you may be living with that. And you may be afraid of trying things because you have learned that failure is bad. It's been ingrained in you and instilled in you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying let's all go out and be failures in life and not accomplish our goals. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try or that achievement or success isn't good. But what I am saying is if you're on a sales team, for example, and you're going out there, you're trying, you're busting your butt, and you're doing what you can, your heart's in the right place, your effort, your work ethic, all in the right place, and you fail, you don't achieve your goal. If I'm your sales manager, I've got two options. I can either say, hey, you failed, you're off the team, you're fired, whatever. I can play Mr. Hardball, right? Or I can look at the bigger picture and say, you know what? You stepped out and you did something you weren't able to do last month or the month before. You broke new records. You didn't achieve your goal, but you may have done something new. You may have stretched yourself. You pushed yourself to do something, and you took a risk. You put it out there. You set a goal, and you put it out there for everybody to see. The whole sales team saw your goal, and you were brave enough, and you had enough courage to step out and do something like that. Congratulations. Way to go. Let's do it again. Only this month, I got a feeling you're going to get there. Who would you rather work with on a sales team between those two options? A or B? Which one would be more encouraging? Which approach would give you the encouragement to pick up and do it all over again? So our kids, same thing. We need to, as long as people are trying, their heart's in the right place, and they're not failing on purpose. Now that's different. I'm not talking about that. But if there's a concerted effort, a hard work ethic, people are stepping out and doing it, and they fail, we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate it as parents. We need to celebrate it as teachers, as coaches, as mentors, as bosses and managers. We need to be celebrating because that person did something that was uncomfortable. And as you and I both know, nothing great happens inside the walls of your comfort zone. Please write that down and put it on the wall in front of your office wherever you work. Nothing great happens in the walls of your comfort zone. Failure is not comfortable. Failure is uncomfortable. Nobody's excited to go fail. It brings a level of discomfort because we have to go back and face the fact that we didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve. And we have to figure out why. What happened? How do I not do it again? Right? Well, that's where greatness lies. So if you're failing, if you're trying hard and working hard and failing, it's only a matter of time because you are operating outside of the walls of your comfort zone. You are pushing yourself outside of that boundary, outside of that limit. And you ought to be congratulated for it, not condemned, scolded, or punished for it. And I hope there's enough good managers out there that'll see that. So when you're setting your goals, set your goals just outside of your comfort zone. Push yourself to do something new, something hard. Write it down on your goal sheet. You ought to be carrying them around with you everywhere you go. Okay? Your goal sheet ought to have your goals. and put yourself out there. It's a little uncomfortable, it's a little intimidating because, hey, what if I go through all the effort of setting my goals and I don't achieve it? It's easier not to, right? It's easier to stay inside of your comfort zone. But that's not where great things happen. So push yourself, embrace failure. Don't see failure as a bad thing. If you're working hard and you're pushing yourself, don't see failure as a bad thing. See failure as a good thing because it says you're moving forward. I'm going to close with this. One of my favorite animation videos of all time is Meet the Robinsons. There's this spot in the movie where they're gathered around a dinner table and they're talking about something and someone mentions, I can't even remember it, I can't quote it. Kind of like me taking tests, right? Not great, but I remember the idea, the message that was taught. Somebody mentioned something and it was a failure, it was a product they were inventing. As an inventor, I really connected with that show. I loved it because the family celebrated. As soon as somebody said that they had failed, everyone around the dinner table cheered for that person because they knew that that person had worked hard, had stepped out, had tried something new, and that failure was simply a small badge of honor because any successful person has failed all along the way. In fact, they even say, you've maybe even heard this in some success seminars and such, is fail forward, fail your way to success. People say that for a reason. Not because it's just some trite phrase, but because there's a lot of truth to it. There is a lot of failure along the road to success. So if you're struggling with something, if you're working hard, setting goals, keep falling on your face, just know that it's normal. Just like everybody else has done it all along the way, you are right on track. Just keep picking yourself up, celebrate, even though maybe nobody else in the world is, maybe your manager isn't, maybe your parents aren't, maybe your best friend isn't, maybe no one else is. Let me be the one that's doing that for you. We'll celebrate your success. I give you permission to celebrate, not your success, your failure. I give you permission to celebrate that failure not because it's a failure, but because of what it meant for you to go through and do that. Congratulations, do it again. Hopefully you succeed this time. Do it again and do it again and do it again. And guess what? One of these times, you're going to come up and you'll see you've succeeded and you've made it. That's what failure is all about. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You're either going to win or you're going to learn. Those are your two options. You're either going to win or learn. Take failure out of the equation, embrace it, look at it in a whole different light, and fail your way to success.